Just gonna pile on a little here. She told her. She tell you. Yeah. Okay. So the sub, who was your sub? JJ. She's a nice lady. Taught her older kids. They were good, quiet, but good kids. Got it? Yeah. All right. So presidential hats, right? So some of you where you have jobs, you wear a lot of different hats. You don't just do one thing, right? And the president has 8 different hats. Okay. Now, I talked about this in the lecture. You have to take a quick review for the ladies that fell asleep or didn't pay attention. Did you guys pay attention? Avril?
Me?
Yeah, you.
We were online. We watched it.
It played. Melissa, did you watch it?
She's done it for like the last 2 months.
She hasn't paid attention since February. So. She's not.
Quick review. Remember when we talked presidential and parliamentary systems. The President of the United States in a presidential system is both head of state and chief executive. So the head of state position, or chief of state for this, because we're going to put chief in all of these, okay, is ceremonial. Who's the leader of your country? Joe Biden. He's the president. Okay? Now, chief executive, that's your constitutional role. That is where you have Article 2, Section 8 says that the president's duty is to execute the laws of the United States, to carry them out. That's his constitutional role. Now, does the president of the United States currently, President Biden, execute the immigration laws of this country to their fullest extent? No. Does the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, execute federal drug laws when it comes to marijuana, where you have over 30 states violating federal laws? No. Neither did Obama, nor did Trump, nor did Bush. This is called prosecutorial discretion. I used the word discretion earlier in my lecture this morning when I talked about whether you're going to do the homework or not. Okay? Lest you not understand the term. Okay? To prosecute those who violate the law. So the president could send the FBI, the DEA, into every pot shop in America and shut it down right now, as we speak. Okay? They choose not to. Now, so is the president violating his oath of office when he doesn't enforce the law? Well, in a strict view of things, you might say yes. But based on precedent of previous presidents, the courts have not declared such the case. Okay? Everybody with me? Okay. Now, the big difference here, which can be confusing on a test, homework assignment, here, appointing a Supreme Court judge, how is that different than appointing a Secretary of Defense? As I discussed in the lecture, the president can fire the Secretary of Defense because he works for him. He is his boss. He is the administrator of all of these employees and many more that work in the executive branch of government. Okay? 3 million people. Now, as I talked with the boys about, he's not going to fire like an individual IRS agent from Wyoming. Okay? But he can fire the director of the IRS. Okay? He cannot fire the Supreme Court judge. They serve for what? How long? For life. All right. Chief diplomat. All right. Diplomacy, the art of negotiation. President Biden announced that this week that he is going to send another additional $800 million in aid to the Ukrainians, military aid to the Ukrainians. Okay. Most Americans are probably okay with that. But some people are like, well, what could we do with that $800 million in the United States besides running up our national debt? Over 30 different countries are giving military aid to the Ukrainians right now. And now we are sending them state-of-the-art stuff. The new stuff, which you always worry about falling into Russian hands. Like our best technology, these new drones that we have and so forth. These fall into Russian hands, they reverse engineer it. Next thing you know, they have the same technology we have. So those are things you have to consider as commander-in-chief in that case. Here, chief diplomat, working with other nations, okay, in a variety of different ways. Yes? Okay. Now, can the president do a treaty with another country on his own? No, that has to be approved by whom? By what majority? 2/3. So the example I used the other day, if Lithuania is invaded right now, Russia attacks Lithuania, we are going to war, we don't have a choice. We are bound by a treaty to go to war and defend them. That's kind of scary. Okay, and that's what George Washington warned us about. Gave the example of Woodrow Wilson putting forward his 14 points that created the League of Nations. And our Senate said, nope. We're not handing over sovereignty of the United States to an international organization. In 1945, we joined the United Nations. The Senate agreed. Okay? Now, the president can, as a diplomat, do what's called an executive agreement. It's further down in the notes. It makes an agreement with another head of state. When I left off with the gentleman the other day, I was talking about the Iran nuclear deal that President Obama made with the president of Iran. Now, you guys remember 1979? They stormed our embassy, took hostages. We froze all Iranian assets in this country. Under this nuclear deal with Iran, President Obama gave them back $50 billion. And much of it came literally, guys, in pallets of cash that we dropped on airports in Iran. Pallets of cash to the #1 state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Now, that deal might have been a good deal had you allowed, if the Iranians would allow surprise inspections by the International Nuclear Agency that deals with that. But there are no surprise inspections of their nuclear facilities. They have to be scheduled visits by the IAEA, which is that nuclear agency. Okay, the International Atomic something agency. Okay, the IAEA. Okay, now, okay. And by the way, this budget now is like 4.8 trillion, guys. All right, so 4 down. That's my quick review. Wasn't super quick, but I don't want anybody to be left behind for having to watch a video of me in my class. Okay, now, Commander-in-Chief, not Commander-in-Chief, Commander-in-Chief. Okay, now, he is the leader of the armed forces, which is great that we have a civilian that is in charge of the military. The person in charge of our military is not a military person. Okay, that's good. In a democratic system, we elect somebody, hopefully, that we trust to not put us into a bunch of wars. Get a general in charge of it all, you know, you could have some problems here. Okay. Now, we've had a lot of former generals as presidents. Okay. Now, the president can use the armed forces anywhere he wants, anytime he wants. Now, that's not written in the Constitution. It just says he is the commander-in-chief in charge of the armed forces. Well, so we look to history here, to precedent. Okay? And let me tell you a little story. Some of you might remember from history, some of you may not. I'm going back to our third president. Who's our third president? Thomas Jefferson. Okay. Figured somebody yell it out. All right. Now, he's elected in 1802. Now, the United States has two major cash crops at the time that really lifted this country out of debt after the Revolution. What are those two cash crops? Tobacco and cotton. And there was demand for our tobacco and cotton in other parts of the world. So American plantation owners would buy ships and they would ship that stuff across the Atlantic, across the Pacific. And one of the routes they would take is through the Mediterranean Sea. And when our ships started sailing the Mediterranean, they got stopped right here by pirates, Barbary pirates, Muslim pirates from Libya. And they demanded, what did the pirates demand? A bounty. Yes, the British paid the bounty, the Spanish paid the bounty, the French paid the bounty to pass. Jefferson said, we're not paying the bounty. So the next time American ships showed up, they were attacked by the pirates and taken hostage. Jefferson sent the U.S. Navy, including a ship called the USS Philadelphia. And it got attacked. This really pissed off Jefferson. So he sent a bigger fleet to the Mediterranean. And they attacked these pirates. And then some of the people that were on the ships landed on Libya and got off the ships. We don't call those guys sailors. We call those guys what? Marines. And they went in and killed a bunch of those pirates and got our people out. Listen to the Marine Corps anthem. The hulls of Montezuma, shores of Tripoli, 1803. Okay? Jefferson did not consult Congress. He just did it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, say, maybe Vietnam? No, I'm going there. Okay? Now listen. Jefferson set the precedent for future presidents to use the armed forces, and they did. Almost every president we've had has used the armed forces somewhere. Vietnam became our longest war. Yes? You might remember these dates from history class. Right? 64 to 75. In 1973, the Congress said, you know what? There ought to be a limit. So, in 1973, they passed the War Powers Act of 1973 that said the president can use the troops anywhere he wants. 60 days. Without congressional approval. If Congress approves the action, they can stay indefinitely. If Congress does not approve the action, he's got 30 days to withdraw our troops. So in essence, he has 90 days.
But he sent them to like the moon. Then
He sent him where?
went to the moon. They would have to stay there for 60 days.
They don't have to stay for 60 days. They
Well,
can stay for 60 days. The Space Force.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
I don't know.
you disagree with this?
No. I agree with it. I just don't know what's up with Steve. I don't know.
Oh, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's real. Okay, so what if the Chinese decide to set up a military base on the moon?
That wouldn't be very effective.
What if the Chinese decide to take out our satellites? We have the ability to take out their satellites?
Does it exist? Does Space Force exist?
It's a real thing.
Okay, so people are.
Trump created it, yes.
Okay, so
It is a,
under.
oh, well, it must be bad.
No, that's not what I was thinking. I just didn't know
No,
you
I
said it
didn't
was
know.
around for so long.
No, yeah, Trump created it. There was, hey, many people feel there's a need for it. I know, it sounds weird. It is weird.
It can be the Air Force because there's no air in space.
Right.
It's just like, it's just
What?
a Trump.
You need another stick.
Oh, Space Force.
Space Force.
Yeah. How
A
come they're not?
really, really big one, because there's a massive hole right in the middle and it bugs me.
Okay. Now, guys, remember, the United States of America has not declared war since December 8, 1941. Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, the Afghan War, the Iraq War of 2003. Now, in 2003, which is the most controversial war in recent history, because Iran did not attack us. So we invaded Iraq without being attacked. Congress voted whether to fund that or not. And they voted to fund that. Hillary voted to fund it. John Kerry voted to fund it. That was 2003. Barack Obama was not in the Senate yet. So he didn't vote on it. He said, I would have voted against it. Donald Trump said, I would have voted against it. By 2006, the war was very unpopular, as was President Bush. Okay? The Democrats controlled both houses of Congress in 2006. Could they have voted to not fund the war? Yes. Did they? Did they even bring it up for a vote? No. Did they use it for political points in the next election? Absolutely. Okay? Now, that takes us to the next one. Chief legislator. If you win a landslide election like Reagan did in 1984, 49 states of 50. Yes? The Democrats controlled the Senate and passed the largest tax cut in American history. Democrats. Because the president was so popular. They feared it. Are Republicans in the Senate right now going to vote with Joe Biden because they fear him? No. So this chief legislature really depends on the popularity of the president. Okay, and who controls Congress. But every year the president is mandated by the Constitution to give the State of the Union address. What are we on? 47? 47th president? Biden's 47, right? Trump was 46.
Trump was 45.
Trump is 45, Biden's 46. Now, I forgot what I was going to say. Cadence.
Yeah.
Every 45 of the 46 presidents have given the State of the Union address in person, in front of Congress, orally, with a speech. Only one of the 46 has not. He was mentioned earlier in this class today. Who? Jefferson. Jefferson submitted it in writing. He didn't like giving speeches, but he was good at writing. Okay. So let me give you some other examples here. Okay. How many guys have ever heard of a education policy called No Child Left Behind? Yeah. So, do you know which president put that in law? Signed it into law? George W. Bush in 2001. Now, if you polled the American people in 2001, who's better when it comes to education, Democrats or Republicans? What are they going to say? Democrats. So Bush wanted to take that issue off the table for Republicans, so he called Ted Kennedy. Massachusetts, we've talked about him, yes? Yeah, that guy. And he had a plan called No Child Left Behind. Now, Bush put in a movie theater in the White House, and there was a movie that had just come out about Ted Kennedy's older brother, JFK, called 13 Days. You guys seen that?
That movie sucked.
You saw it over here?
Yeah, it was horrible. Their Boston accents, absolutely atrocious.
But the movie itself,
JFK doesn't look like JFK.
I mean, it was.
They
fun.
like hype it up.
It was good. They left out all the.
how many actors look like JFK?
I
It's
know.
gotta be
But
unique.
like, I also don't like Kevin Costner.
Well, there you go. He cheated on his wife. My wife.
So
likes
he
him.
did it.
Yeah,
So did all Kennedy. Yeah.
yeah, they all do. Anyway, except for what's his name?
No.
Oh, you're talking about the Kennedys? Yeah, they all do. But I was talking about actors. Yeah, Keanu Reeves. He's been married a long time.
I love it.
He's like a normal dude.
That's because it's.
I love that guy.
His wife died a long time.
Oh, she died?
Yeah.
Why didn't she die?
No, she was pregnant, and then she died in childbirth, and then he never like got in a relationship. with
Oh, that's
anybody ever
horrible.
again.
Did I before you?
Yeah, so that's
John
why I
Wick.
never cheated on anybody.
Matrix.
Right.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
Yes.
In that one baseball movie.
Hardball. Yes.
Wait, he's in a football movie too. Placement?
Yes. Great movie. Do not kill
Do
yourself.
not. Oh.
He will kill you with a pencil.
I know. who you're talking about.
Pickaxe.
John Wick movies are fabulous. Okay. Now, all right. What am I talking about? Yeah. So Bush invites Ted to see the movie 13 Days at the White House. He says, Ted, hey, what's this education plan you got? Yeah, I think we want to do that. So we had to live with it for like 15 years. It's horrible. Testing, and more testing. Yeah, you guys grew up with that. Yeah. State assessment.
It was a whole week.
Oh, that's a map testing we didn't use.
I got trained.
Those were so.
So teachers teach to the state assessment. You understand teaching to the test? Okay. I don't do that. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. And they want, you guys know the DRT, right? You used to have the DRT, right? So we had to do that for social studies. They said if they don't pass social studies state assessment, they got to do remediation. Well, the freaking state of Kansas doesn't know how to run a state assessment for social studies. They tried multiple times. The last time we did it, I had to take 2 days with the junior class because you have to test juniors, you can't test seniors, and we're teaching juniors what I teach the senior year because they don't get it their junior year because our curriculum's off base because you don't take social studies as a freshman here. Wait till you're sophomore, so we're behind in social studies. So I had to go teach the junior class for 2 days about World War II, Cold War, Civil Rights Movement, everything we teach in here in 2 days.
So that's kind of.
Oh, I was flying. Had all the juniors in the auditorium.
One entire day, or just.
The whole day for 2 days.
I guarantee that.
We did social studies, assessment, test prep with Mr. Ebright in the auditorium. Let's go. I had a slideshow and I went. I gave him an outline. I said, we're going.
I would sit there. I was just to see you.
Oh, I had people like signing up for my class.
Did you record it?
They're like, oh, I want to take him for class.
Did you record it?
That would be such a long video. YouTube would definitely take that one.
So, guys, then we take the test. They take a test, we don't get a score. They never even scored it. This is what I'm talking about. You do all this test prep, you take all the days in the week to do the testing, right? For science. We did this last year. Science and math and English, right? Yeah. That's No Child Left Behind. You're wasting educational time on testing. And you got teachers in the public schools, and the public schools are going to be graded based on these tests. So they have a tendency to, make it a big deal. And sometimes they get caught cheating because it makes their school look good or bad. This affects the community. Based on those scores, people are going to be buying houses in one school district or another, and they have kids, they're going to look at the test scores for that school district. I'm not putting my kid in these schools. That means property tax dollars are walking out the door. So everything's, all this stuff focused on state assessment, teachers' jobs, focused on that. It's a horrible idea. But Bush just took it. He said, yeah, we're going to take this. Now, if you ask people today, who's better on education? Democrats or Republicans? Ask the people of Virginia. They answered that call. Because the number one issue in that last gubernatorial election in Virginia was education and what was being taught in school. And that's going to have an impact in this election. Yeah. And other stuff like they had in Florida. Yeah. Yes. So that is in front of the Supreme Court right now. They told him not to do it. Now, as an American, you have freedom of religion. So he's allowed to kneel and pray. What he's not allowed to do is lead a prayer with his players. So he went by himself, took a knee, and his players came to him. And they fired him. So that's taken about, 6 years since that happened to make it to the Supreme Court. Okay. See what happens. You guys ever watch other teams like you guys compete against? Watch if they pray or not? I've seen it. I'm baseball games. Okay. I know like the Heights coach. I see them over there. Now they're all on a knee with their head bowed. I assume that's what they're doing. Before the game.
What?
Okay, moving on. All right, so chief citizen is kind of hard to define. Okay, but think of it this way: trend setting. So I got this example here: Jackie Kennedy. Everybody loved her, and so she wore these hats. Next thing you know, half of the American women are wearing these hats. Now I know some of you might not know who Sarah Palin is. She never became first lady or vice president, but she ran for vice president. So she was on TV all the time, and she had kind of this cool hairdo. And next thing you know, hairdressers all over the country are doing the Sarah Palin hairdo for women. It was kind of cool. Michelle Obama, exercise 60 minutes, right? That was kind of her thing when she was first lady, getting kids childhood obesity.
Yeah.
No, I
remember when lunches
They
were
went
good.
down. So.
Okay, can I explain something to you? Michelle Obama does not set the menus for school lunches.
I blame her.
The Department of Agriculture sets those. Okay. Now, could she have any sway with the Department of Agriculture? Possibly. Okay.
Every day we go to lunch and go things.
Yes.
I supersize this every time.
Ooh, I don't know if they get federal funding for that. With the money comes the strings attached. And we are getting free lunches right now, so yes, we are subject. When is that going to end?
Oh my gosh.
Like the start of next school year, maybe? Unemployment is at incredibly low levels right now. like historically low levels. Sorry. Chief citizen, Nancy Reagan, don't do drugs. Laura Bush, childhood literacy. She was a librarian. That was her thing. Okay. I don't know. What was Melania? Did she have a cause?
She was cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying.
She wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Well, you know, she probably had her fair share of being bullied. Yeah.
But I'll say that.
She kind of knows what's up. Somebody read a book review on that. Book on the Trump presidency, Trump White House. Not in this class? Okay. They talked about that, Melania. Kind of interesting. Anyhow, okay. Okay, chief of party. Now, we talked about this with the RNC, DNC. So, who is the head of the Democratic Party today? The president. And the Republican Party, remember her name? Ronna Romney McDaniel. Okay, the head of the RNC. Okay, now, this one here, guys, again, it can depend on your popularity. We got some track people in here. Track stars. Listen, who is Jim Ryan? What high school did he go to? He went to North East.
He went somewhere near.
Yeah, I think he went to East. Yeah. Jim Ryan, first high schooler to break 4 minutes in the country. Yeah. Now, Jim Ryan segued that fame into running for the 2nd District of Kansas for the House of Representatives. And he was elected, and he served 2 terms, was running for re-election in 2006 at the height of the Iraq War, unpopularity of Bush. Jim Ryan invited George W. Bush in to campaign for him. The president's coming to campaign for me. This is wonderful. Jim Ryan lost. Right now, guys, Democrats in Congress that are facing re-election are running from Joe Biden because of his unpopularity. Okay? When presidents are popular, now, if you're a Democratic member of Congress today and Barack Obama offers to campaign, you're going to accept that offer? Yeah. Okay? But Joe Biden, you might say, hey, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you offering, but maybe next time. No, seriously. I mean, you're just like, yeah. Okay? So it kind of depends. Okay? All right, let's talk about the VP. This came up as I was walking through the lunchroom today. There are no qualifications to be vice president. So, the next candidate for president could choose Arnold Schwarzenegger to be his running mate.
Yes.
Is there an age?
No age. No requirements. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to be 35. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is the former governor of California, born in Romania. Now, would any candidate be stupid enough to appoint somebody to be the running mate that could not fill their shoes if they were not able to remain president? No. Nobody would vote for somebody that did something that stupid.
They would be allowed to be president.
Okay, so this is the conversation. Lipinski and Darrell were dressed up because most likely to be president. And Darrell's like, I'm not even allowed to be president. And I'm like, but you could be vice president. And they said, well, what happens if Lipinski dies? It goes to Blaze, who's the Speaker of the House.
So what's the
So
point of
that's
being
the highest
vice
thing.
president? So you can have your face.
It's never happened. It will never happen. You would have somebody that's 35 and a U.S. citizen and lived here for 14 years. Okay? Now, 1 in 5 vice presidents have become president by succession, meaning the president died in office, or, in the case of Richard Nixon, resigned. Okay? 1 and 3 have gone on to become elected president later on. Joe Biden was vice president from 2000 to 2008, was elected president 12 years later. That's not the rule. That's an exception to the rule. Usually it's right after they're vice president. Okay? So Nixon was kind of the same. He was vice president from 52 to 60, was elected in 68. Now, have you guys heard of this Indian curse? Tippecanoe and Taylor Tooth. William Henry Harrison defeated the Indian chief Tecumseh in the Battle of Tippecanoe, which is present-day Indiana, and then took that fame and was elected president in 1840. William Henry Harrison. How long did that presidency last? 30 days. He got pneumonia while giving the inaugural address in the cold, got sick, and died. In 1860, who was elected president? Abraham Lincoln. What happened to him? He was assassinated. 1880, Garfield was elected president for the second time, not in consecutive terms. What happened to Garfield? He died. In 1900, William McKinley was elected president. What happened to him? He was assassinated. In 1920, Warren G. Harding of Ohio was elected president. What happened to him? He died. 1940, President Roosevelt was elected. What happened to him? He died. 1960, John F. Kennedy was elected president. What happened to him? He was assassinated. In 1980, Ronald Reagan was elected president. What happened to him? He got shot. Now, if that bullet was 3 millimeters to the left, he would have died instantly. Reagan broke the curse. More than a man. A legend. So, Bush in 2000 survives his presidency and
Knock on wood.
if history repeats itself, Biden will survive his presidency.
But also, if Harris becomes president, we're gonna.
Is the queen gonna die soon?
She just turned 96.
But I thought she was like really, really sick.
Dude, I want to be in England when she dies. They shut down the whole country for like a long time, and like you literally aren't allowed to do anything.
All right.
Everybody's gonna be really.
Talking more about the vice presidency. Your only official duty is to be president of the Senate. You can preside over the Senate as much or as little as you want. Now, our first vice president was John Adams. So the first meeting of the Senate, 1790, 26 members of the Senate. John Adams shows up to preside over them. And they're like, what are you doing here, John? Hey, if we have a tie vote, we'll let you know. You really don't need to be here. In fact, you're obnoxious and disliked. So please leave. He's like, what? Now, how much power does the vice president have? It depends on what the president gives you. Like, hey, what's your job going to be while you're vice president? What's your thing going to be? So for Kamala, Biden was nice enough to give her the southern border. She's in charge of the southern border, not Joe. Talk about throwing somebody under the bus. Look, it's worse. It's worse. And now that's not uncommon.
The wall
I mean-
numbers or the relationship? The relationship.
The relationship. I mean, I'm kind of surprised Mike Pence lasted 4 years with Trump. I mean, he had a lot of turnover in his cabinet. Trump did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can dump them.
I didn't know you could fire them.
Yeah, because I thought like
Wait,
they
has that
elected
happened
them together.
You like, yeah, I think you can dump them.
That seems wrong.
So what happens? I just know that's what the people elected.
Really, there's only a little bit of precedent for this, and the Nixon's first vice president was Spiro Agnew, and he came under indictment from when he was governor of Maryland. So he became vice president, and then they indicted him on some charges, and so he resigned, but he was pushed out. He didn't have to resign, but he was pushed out because he was making the president look bad. Okay, there's really not a lot of precedent. I think they can force them to resign, but I'm not positive on that. Okay, now, so yeah, some vice presidents don't. When Biden was vice president, you know what he was in charge of? The Ukraine.
He was, you remember like all the.
You remember his son? Okay, never mind. John Adams said this: as vice president, I am nothing, but I could be everything. And remember John Garner from Texas said the vice presidency isn't worth a warm pitcher of spit. Okay, he was a one-term vice president. Okay, now how do they pick these people? Well, we know how Joe Biden picks people, based on skin tone and gender. Okay, but generally it's to balance the ticket. So look at JFK. JFK, Massachusetts. Okay, LBJ from Texas. FDR from New York, John Garner, yes? When John Kerry ran for Massachusetts, picked John Edwards of North Carolina. To balance the ticket geographically or by extremity. So you take John McCain, who's a moderate Republican, picked a very conservative Sarah Palin as his running mate, okay, to get conservatives excited. Why did Obama pick Joe Biden? Well, Obama didn't have a lot of foreign policy experience, as most of our new presidents do. They don't have a lot of foreign policy experience, most of them. And so he picked Joe Biden, who had sat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for 30 years, to give you the impression that they had some experience now in foreign policy. Okay? So it can be those things that they choose usually for vice president. Okay? Good? Pick up from there tomorrow.